Hey everyone, it's Yvonne Emile Elizondo from Silver Moon Astrology and Transpersonal Counseling, also known as Silver Moon Counseling. And I'm here with the Mercury retrograde update. Yep, it's that time of year again. We're actually going to be in Mercury retrograde, moving from 2022 to 2023. And, sometimes the way you end the year and start the year are kind of relatively important. So I want to share with you my perspectives of what we can potentially expect with this transit. So let's get started. I'm going to show you my chart. Here we go. And please forgive me. Again, I'm not a massive videographer. I am literally just recording on my computer and doing the best that I can with lighting. It is later in the evening, and so just bear with me while I show this to you. Okay, so here we go. Here is the Mercury stationed, okay, to the retrograde, right? So retrograde started on the 29th. It is retrograding in Capricorn. We'll talk about what Capricorn is. It is also retrograding almost to the exact minute with Venus in Capricorn. There's Venus. And then if you notice, we also have troublemaker, Pluto, the destroyer, the breaker downer, the intensifier, all lined up for this Mercury retrograde in Capricorn. Now, you'll notice that there's these beautiful green lines. Okay, these are sextiles to Neptune in Pisces. All right. So these two are what we refer to as more feminine, not female, but more feminine receptive energies, Pisces and Capricorn. And that's why they are considered sextiles. Sextiles are actually a pretty good essence because these two energies are, again, they're both receptive, okay, and feminine, and not feminine in the sense of female again, but they're just more receptive, more maybe internal, okay, as opposed to external action. There's an internalization of this energy. So that is the major focus here for this Mercury retrograde. I'm not going to go into much into the square that the moon and the sun are making right now. It does have an influence, but I really just want to focus on this Mercury retrograde and all of this energy that is going along with Mercury retrograde. So let's get started. Okay. Well, let's talk about what Mercury retrograde is first and foremost. And so Mercury retrograde is really about, Mercury is about the mind, right? It is the traveler of the zodiac. It is the messenger of the gods. And so when we have this Mercury, it represents the mind, communication, travel, sending information from one place to another. And it really is a very fast moving energy. Now in retrograde, it doesn't really work all that great. It doesn't work correctly, right? And that's why we say during Mercury retrogrades, you might have miscommunications, you might have to redo emails, reassess, communications, letters, documents. And that's why you say don't sign anything during Mercury retrograde, because you may not see things very clearly when it comes to Mercury retrograde. So again, Mercury represents the mind. It represents thinking, communication, and the transporting of information from one place to another. Likewise, transporting people and things and products from one place to another. So this is really what Mercury represents. So when Mercury is retrograde, again, it doesn't quite function correctly. You may have to redo a lot of what you set out to do during a Mercury retrograde, whether it's immediately or whether it's further on down the line. You will recognize that things just don't seem to happen easily during a Mercury retrograde. There's technical issues that happen. So it represents technology as well, because technology sends information from one place to another. And so you may find that things just don't work the way that you expect them to. You may have more travel issues. You may have more delays in travel, or delays in receiving products, or delays in communication. You may receive the wrong thing. Oh my gosh, I ordered this shea butter and they sent me the absolutely wrong one. And I'm like, of course, figures, right? During Mercury retrograde. I'm sure it was a complete accident, but so that's the Mercury retrograde piece. Capricorn is cardinal Earth. So this is initiatory energy, but it's still Earth. It's still a mountain, right? And so it's ruled by Saturn, right? And Saturn is a planet that is very slow moving. It likes for you to learn its lessons, life lessons. It doesn't move very fast. It's like the strict parent. And so Capricorn is about responsibility. It's about getting the job done. It's about work. We're very work oriented. It's about structure and foundation. It's also the finance zodiac, right? It represents finances and wealth and resources, because you need those in order to work, and working gets you those resources. So Capricorn is a very structured sign. From a more personal point of view, it can be more isolationist. We are isolationists. I'm just going to go with that. We like to isolate, and we don't mind being alone. Like, it really is a very comfortable state of being for Capricorns to be alone. Okay. We tend to be more on the serious end, but I have to tell you, I think we have a pretty wicked sense of humor if you really get to know us. I mean, we're friendly, but we're not going to let you in immediately. And I keep saying we, because I have like 5 planets in Capricorn. So I know Capricorn very well. But it can also be a more of a depressive or melancholy type of energy. And it's not that we're necessarily trying to be negative Nancy's, but what we're trying to do is that we instinctively see the potential for risk. We're kind of like the quality managers. We see the potential for things going wrong, and we call those out immediately so we can fix them, we can feel better, and then we can move on. But on the opposite end of that, stick, people can see us as being negative and complainers and critical. And I will be honest with you, Capricorns are more critical with themselves than they are with their external world. So that's Capricorn energy, right? So when we're referring to Mercury retrograde in Capricorn, then these are the this is how Mercury is going to function, right? So usually Mercury is going to be responsible and practical in Capricorn, but because it's in retrograde, it may not be able to find the essence of Capricorn very easily. So you may see, you're planning your projects, or you're planning your goals for 2023, and things just don't seem to fit very well. Mercury is a very practical, logical thinker in Capricorn, a very responsible, almost linear thinker in Capricorn. And when it's in Capricorn and it's retrograde, it becomes almost like massive ADHD. And I have to tell you, I have Mercury retrograde in my natal chart, and it's at the very top part of my chart, right on my midheaven, a super sensitive point, and I have massive ADHD. So this is the Mercury that doesn't work very well, right? That the communication, the mind just kind of bounces from one place to another. It's trying to get up the mountain and complete its work, but somehow it just keeps getting dinged off the path. And that's kind of the Mercury retrograde that we'll be dealing with. Now, in addition to Mercury retrograde, we also have Venus in the mix. So Mercury retrograde and Venus are conjunct almost to the minute. They're in the same degree, almost to the minute. And what that means is that Mercury retrograde and Venus are kind of, their expression is almost at one energy. It's going to be just like this one energy. And Venus represents beauty and aesthetics. It represents finances too. It represents those things that we love, how we connect interpersonally. It's how we love. Okay. And so Venus in Capricorn tends to be more practical, tends to be more grounded. Venus, I have Venus in Capricorn as well. We are probably going to get you a more practical Christmas gift than a fun, really cool Christmas gift. Okay. Venus in Capricorn has, again, a wicked sense of humor, but silly, goofy things or silly, goofy people, not her type at all. Okay. So this Venus is more serious. She's ready to work. She's ready to go through the to the top of the mountain, with this Capricorn energy. So Mercury retrograde and Venus, we can expect that maybe some of those Mercury issues that you may run across are going to be either about finances, because Capricorn also represents finances and resources, or it could be, having difficulty connecting in relationships or interpersonal relationships, work, document structures. Okay, all of those things that should be easy with Venus, one of the benefics of the zodiac, may become a little bit more challenging during this time. Okay. And then if you add Pluto in the mix, okay, now Pluto is the destroyer. It's the Lord of the underworld. It wants to break things down to the nitty gritty. And it does so that we can rebuild in a different capacity. And what Pluto has been doing in Capricorn for the last several years, okay, is that it has been creating the opportunity to break down the hierarchy structure, like the government. So we see a lot of revolting and pushing back of various peoples and within their countries and the government. We see that structures, financial structures especially, are starting to break down as well. Now that's also a Pluto retrograde in the US chart in the second house of finance, not Pluto retrograde, Pluto return. Okay, so Pluto is returning, okay, to the second house of finances in the US chart. So we can expect the breakdown of resources and finances in the economy right now. Now, I'm not predicting like a major breakdown or anything. I'm not a political astrologer, but I do know enough that it is creating, obviously, a source of stress financially for us here in the US. So Pluto is creating this breakdown, right? Now, here's the perfect example of this Mercury retrograde, conjunct Venus, conjunct Pluto in Capricorn. Anybody hear about the Southwest debacle that just happened a few days ago when Mercury was stationed to turn retrograde? It's the most strong when it's stationed. Yeah, think about it. Mercury retrograde travel, completely discombobulated. There was delays, there was cancellations, okay? People were definitely not having an easy time. Some of them were stuck at the airport. Some of them, they had to get to hotels. Financially, they had to probably fork out money that they didn't expect to fork out. And what did Pluto do? Pluto literally destroyed, okay, the communication faculties of this airline. Literally, there was a complete breakdown in communication, okay? And that's what caused all of the delays and cancellations. And of course, in Capricorn, it's about the structure of things, right? Well, Pluto just tested the structure of, Southwest Airlines communications, and guess what? It did not meet standards at all. So this is a super, super amazing example of what this Mercury retrograde, conjunct Venus, conjunct Pluto in Capricorn, what it can bring to the table. So now we're going to add the sextile to Neptune, because Neptune is foggy-ish. I always just kind of explain it like fog, right? It's kind of like foggy-ish. And but it's also very highly spiritual, highly creative, highly altruistic and compassionate energy. And so when we have Neptune and Pisces, Neptune feels very at home in Pisces. We have this ability of these energies, if we use them correctly, to really tap into more creative ways of going around the Mercury retrograde potential delays, right? So if you know that they're coming, or potentially could be coming, some delays or some miscommunications, then that Neptune energy can lessen the blow. You can find, different or creative ways to circumvent these Mercury retrograde Venus / Pluto issues. Or you could also tap into that more essence of the heart, right? Because that Neptune is about that spirituality. It is about the heart and being compassionate and being understanding and not going all berserk on people when things don't go right. Yeah. So this is the Mercury retrograde. It lasts until January 18th, when it turns direct. And then at that point, it's going to complete its shadow period. So it'll, these issues could potentially lessen. But, in my chart, it's hitting my 9th house of my spirituality, my philosophical view of life, my higher education. I'm not going back to school. But it is a time right now. Pluto has, my career is amazing, as I mentioned. My health this year, not so much. And so Pluto has literally been like breaking down my perspective of not only like my spirituality and my philosophical view on life, but my interpretation of how I function within my spirituality and how I exert that out into the world. So anyways, that's a different story. But wherever it's hitting in your chart, I can guarantee that there's probably going to be a pretty big, okay, maybe breaking down of whatever it is that it is, activating in your chart. Now, breakdown doesn't always have to be painful. Wish mine wasn't painful. Mine is literally physically painful. Okay, but Mercury retrograde in my natal chart is also being activated by literally Pluto, Venus, and Mercury retrograde are on top of my Mercury retrograde on my midheaven. I'm hoping I survive these next 3 weeks. So anyhow, this is a time for introspection. This is a time where you might become very obsessed and overthink and try to solve problems that originally may not have been there, right? This is a time where you become so hyper-focused on either finances or the processes of things or the structure or the ambition of Capricorn, right? That Pluto just makes things so obsessive. You may feel like you need extra control over your experience, your environment, or the people around you. And that's Mercury retrograde just kind of going loopy, making you think that you need all of this control, okay? But you don't really need that control, because if you're really needing that much control, you probably need some therapy. I'm just saying. So this is really the energy that we're working with. We might feel lost right now. We might feel like we don't have direction, but we need to adamantly find control over our experience. You may find that, interpersonal relationships you may not be communicating very well with your partner. Usually there may be a practical approach to communication. You find that that's just not working for you right now. You may find that, you may become resentful at this time, or maybe a little, again, I keep using obsessive, okay, jealous during this time. Although Capricorn energy isn't really jealous necessarily, but this Venus-Pluto conjunct Mercury retrograde will definitely cause some issues for Venus, the love, the heart, okay? So this is really a time to be very aware that this is a breaking down of processes, of structure, of hierarchy, and however that looks exit the N in. It's however that looks in your life. It could be, again, in your finances. It could be in your career. It could be at your job. It could be with your friends. There's a breakdown, or maybe an essence and need of control right at this time, feeling like maybe you don't have enough control, or maybe you don't have direction right now. But this will pass. So my suggestion, meditate. Always my first suggestion, always meditate, do some breathing, but focus on that Neptune piece. Focus on maybe meditation of loving compassion. Okay. Doing loving compassion from the heart. There's amazing loving compassion meditations out on YouTube. Find one. Okay. This is a time where you know that you might anticipate some delays. Expect them. Do the breathing. Don't get upset. Right. Plan some creative ways around some of these potential challenges, and I think you'll be good. All right, everyone, that's about it for Mercury retrograde in Capricorn. Again, this turns direct in January 18th. January 10th, we do have Mars turning direct in Gemini. Thank goodness. And yeah, so let's hold on. We'll be fine. Just remember to breathe, do some meditating, and find creative ways to maneuver maybe through some of these potential delays, redos, reanalyze, everything. All right, everyone, take care. If you want to learn more about your astrology, you can find me at silvermooncounseling.org. That's silvermooncounseling.org. And yeah, I would love to explore your chart with you. Okay, that's it. I'm out. Thank you so much. Blessed be, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.